So yeah, this is going to be on YouTube. Hi, YouTube. So what happened? So let's answer that question first. Here we go. I want to answer that question by reading the statement from Capcom, okay? So on August 15th, during the North America West 1 qualifier, Alex Myers defeated Victor Punk Woodley. At the conclusion of the match, Punk engaged in unsportsmanlike conduct against tournament organizer Alex Valle on Discord and player Alex Myers on Twitter. This was a clear violation of the CPT Code of Conduct. Under normal circumstances, such behavior would result in a suspension from multiple premieres. However, given the limited number of qualifying events this season, such a ban has excessive consequences. Capcom has therefore ruled that, should he choose to participate, Punk will automatically start in a loser's bracket in the North America West 2 qualifier in November of 2020. We recognize that has been a frustrating year, but threats and insults amongst our top players cannot be tolerated. We hope that this ruling closes this issue and that all parties can move on from the incident. Okay, so that is the statement from Capcom. So Punk is going to loser's bracket if he participates in the only other CPT event for him, right? There are a lot of different angles, and I kind of struggle to cover all of them as a result. So where do we start on this? Generally, I feel you should have to go really far to justify a suspension from CPT events. I think suspensions from CPT events should actually have like a severe, like, I don't know, like sexual harassment falls into the category where I feel like somebody should be suspended for a while, or like physical attacks, or like really, really bad behavior towards another person. And when I say really bad, I actually mean bad beyond a simple insult. I feel like this is where Capcom should step in and say, hey, this there's a line that you definitely crossed there. And so what did Punk even say? I don't have his tweet. I'm not even sure if the tweet still exists, but basically Punk said, Alex Myers is a laggy bitch. That's what he said. Which really, I don't think justifies any of the actions. And there are so many angles to take here. Like, let's keep in mind the whole reason why this problem or the situation occurred in the first place is because Capcom can't fix the netcode. So from the first day when Capcom announced the CPT 2020, how it's going to go because of the current pandemic, it was going to be a shit show no matter what, right? This is something that people have been talking about or predicted immediately from the start. There's going to be a top player that is going to complain about the quality of a match and talks to the TO about it. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus here, but this happens very frequently with Problem X, for example. He holds up tournaments, entire tournaments, because he feels like he needs to have discussions with TOs about the online quality of a tournament, and then after that he goes on a salty rant on Twitter. For some reason, this does not have any consequences. And for the record, I don't think this should have consequences. But clearly, there is a different standard applied here. Or more importantly, there's actually no standard at all. It's just whatever Capcom feels at any given day is applied, apparently. I think this is a big problem. What would I have done in this situation personally? Well, first of all, so MJ Fan brings up a good question. The question is, what's a reasonable response to what happened with Punk and at least, like, let's say Alex Myers, okay? And this is where I want to draw your attention to a discussion that Punk had with Alex Myers. So here's a tweet that I think is really interesting. So Punk tweets, now that I have time to cool off, I want to say sorry for blowing up on you, Alex Myers, and calling you a bitch. Online gets me so damn mad, and CFN is garbage. But I overreacted, and I'm gonna try to get better at being more professional going forward. Also, F the netcode. Alex Myers says, thank you, Punk, for doing this publicly. publicly when you didn't have to. I understand what it's like to play under these conditions, so I know how frustrating it can be. I've always respected you as a player, so this apology means a lot, and you still have my respect. Thanks again, man. So clearly, the situation was resolved within the players, right? This is the best case scenario that you can hope for as a company, essentially, where you don't even have to step in because the situation was resolved within the players, right? They resolved the issue. It was gone. Nobody would have talked about it anymore, but for some reason, Capcom still felt like applying consequences. And when I say consequences, I feel like a lot of people don't understand the implications of these consequences. When you threaten someone with suspensions from CPT events, this is essentially the same as your boss telling you you're not going to earn a salary for a while. Top players are dependent on playing in these tournaments. So no, this isn't a simple slap on the wrist as some people have made it out to be. Punk's road to Capcom Cup is a lot more difficult now. On top of, by the way, the competitive, like the seeding of the next tournament being completely nuts. Like they actually made it more difficult to seed the tournament now the way they handled it. So not only did Punk get punished for this one, but basically every player in that tournament is getting punished. Because if you're in loser's bracket and you run into Punk on your first game, good luck with that. I don't think this is justified, and I don't think it's a good standard that we should have. Clearly, this was a minor issue at best. And for some reason, I always read these comments on Twitter. Like, I asked people on Twitter, am I completely insane? Am I the only one who thinks this is insane from Capcom to do? And a lot of people seem to agree with me, but there's also other people who don't agree, who think it's completely justifiable if someone is being rude. If you're rude to someone, you're justified to basically take away their salary. And I think that's completely insane. I don't think at all that this is reasonable. Yeah, being rude nowadays means you get Twitter cancel culture on you. And I think the best way we can see this is actually happening is the response from Alex Valle, by the way. It's one of the, I'm just trying to show you his response because he's one of the parties involved, right? But a lot of people share his sentiment. So let's take a look at what Alex Valle had to say here. It's a couple of tweets from bottom to top, by the way. So he starts off saying, I understand player frustration more than most. This is why I know how to keep the peace so we can play another day as both player/organizer. I've said some shit to TOs in my youth. Luckily, I had mentors to guide me of my wrongdoings. You have to lead by example to go forward. I find this interesting because I'm pretty sure Alex Valle never had to deal with the situation where he was threatened to be excluded from tournaments because he was rude. I highly doubt Alex Valle actually knows what he's talking about here, but let's just pretend like he does. So what he says afterwards is, I can say the things Punk said during CPT NI West was disrespectful to me and the organization last weekend. This is something, by the way, just a slight comment, I did not see, right? It seems like this happened in the DMs of Discord. I've not seen any actual conversations, so I can't comment on the severity of, the disrespect, right? So let's just pretend like it was actually very disrespectful, whatever. So he goes on by saying, no organizer should be treated this way for hosting events. I know he's young and has some growing to do, so let's help each other to progress in this scene. Let's be clear, I don't hate Punk or have any ill feelings towards him. He has an opportunity to mature and bring positivity to the scene with his streams, content, tournaments, etc. I accept his apology and will do my part to help him grow. Now, what I find interesting in his statements is that he says he's trying to help Punk grow, and I don't see how this is possibly the case. If young players have some learning to do, and the learning involves you threatening their livelihood, then I'm sorry, but that's not mentoring someone, that's just threatening them. So I highly disagree with Alex Valle has to say in this regard. Punk is basically getting the choice, hey, either you get in line or you get out. That's the choice that he's being presented. And somehow Alex Valle is making it seem like it's a chance for Punk to grow in this instance. There's nothing to grow when you're being threatened like this. But at the same time, I understand the problem of, well, it's a bad look for Capcom if players lash out at each other all the time, right? Which doesn't really happen, but a little bit of trash talk should be okay, especially if Capcom themselves have not, like, they should have seen this coming, right? They have a responsibility to at least try to make the situation as good as possible when it comes to the online play, and yet they failed to do that multiple times, right? And everyone knew there's going to be online issues and people will be pissed about it, so what do you do about that? So that's partially Capcom's responsibility. And now, instead of fixing the problem, they're just silencing the players who are vocal about it. Great. He also went into the CPT Discord and said, fuck you all, this event is shit. F everyone who runs it. Yeah, but he's just salty about it, and I don't think a tournament organizer should feel personally offended by it. If that's where you draw the line for a top player, it's not just like a random guy who's salty because he wanted to go 1-2 instead of 0-2. It's someone whose livelihood actually depends on this. So I fully understand being extremely upset about, yeah, I mean, it wasn't handled by Punk well. Let's be clear about that, by the way. Punk could have handled this way better, right? But I can understand the frustration behind it. And Alex Valle said it himself. He can understand the frustration behind it, right? And clearly there was no ill intent towards Alex Valle, like, in the long run, right? He was upset at that time. He said some regrettable stuff. And this is why I'm so confused. Why not just move on from the situation, acknowledging that the CPT netcode is problematic and is, in fact, well, not good if you're gonna have people who compete in the CPT who are dependent on this for making a living, and they're preparing for it, and then they meet a player they can't beat because they can't hit confirm properly. This is a particularly big problem for Karen players, by the way. If you cannot hit confirm crouching medium kick into Tenko, well, you might as well not play the character. If it was someone else other than Punk who backlashed at TUI and players, will it be the same? No, he would have been immediately banned. So actually Punk, I think, does have some top player privilege here, but not as much as Problem X, it seems. I keep bringing up Problem X in this. Like, I love Problem X, by the way. I'm a big fan of him. He's a good player, but like, go back to any CPT online event and you'll see there is always some kind of Problem X drama around it. Every single CPT event that I've been a part of had Problem X drama in it. And I understand it because, like, Problem X is not happy with the online quality and he does not want to play someone. I fully understand this, but I think Capcom needs at least better rules around all of this so that the situation can be resolved properly. There have been a lot of discussions, like with the last CPT Online, where Reinhardt had to replay certain matches, but I think other players did not have to do that. There's been a lot of weird stuff going on, let's say. And I think the most frustrating aspect for a lot of people is just not seeing consistent measures taken, right? And the measures are very, well, dependent on the exact situation, and they seem arbitrary. And I think this is where people really have a problem with it. There should be a better rule set to cover these instances, but there isn't. By the way, this gets us to one topic that I do want to mention, but I don't want to go too deep into it, but I do think it's worth mentioning it. Alex Myers does have direct ties to Capcom, and there's been speculation around his, is it his girlfriend or his wife? I'm not sure if they are married or not, but let's say girlfriend, that she's involved in this. She publicly said that she specifically told everyone at Capcom that she doesn't want to be part of the decision making on it, because that wouldn't be fair, which I respect. But at the same time, like, first of all, we can't tell if that's actually the truth or not. And secondly, let's assume this is true. Do you think that people will still be like, how do I put this? I do not believe that if you have direct ties to any company that they will be able to handle anything objectively. And I think there is a conflict of interest. Absolutely, there is a conflict of interest. Yeah. So at the same time, I don't know how to avoid that. I don't think Capcom can do anything about this unless there is like a rule where like players can't have ties to Capcom or something like that. This is unavoidable. So yeah, that's a kind of like a weird one, right? CPT is so garbage this year. It is pretty bad, and it's bad because of the online. It's bad because the online is so terrible, and it should have been a wake-up call for Capcom, to be honest. It should have been a situation where Capcom understands, and I do think this is probably going to have a positive impact on the netcode quality of Street Fighter 6. One of the major things that happened with Street Fighter 5 is really the discussion around netcode exploded, which is why I'm really looking forward to 2023 when Street Fighter 6 is supposedly going to happen, right? We'll see about it, but at the end of the day, a couple of last comments on the situation. I can understand Punk. No, 22, there's going to be a CPT 2022. That's pretty much already guaranteed from the roadmap that Capcom presented. So early 23 is probably when Capcom Cup, when Street Fighter 6 is going to happen. Anyways, I can fully understand Punk being frustrated. If I was in Punk's situation, then like having essentially the netcode decide your fate when it comes to a huge push for your career is just frustrating. And someone being frustrated by it is like, I fully understand that. This isn't like, this didn't come as a surprise to me. The top players are going to be angry about stuff like that because they want to be responsible for their own losses, right? And the netcode adds a variable that they're not in control of. So yeah, could Punk have handled the situation better? For sure. Did Punk at least apologize and acknowledge that he was being salty? He did, and the apologies were accepted. So this is why it's really confusing to me why Capcom still feels like there needs to be punishment. It's basically on the same level as a corporation silencing critics by removing their salary. It's basically that. The salary of top players are being held hostage so that criticism is being kept to a minimum. I think this is a very dark way of seeing things, I guess. But if you think about it, that's basically what happened here. And I don't like that. I don't like defending that at all. And I think Alex Valle saying that... Oh, by the way, I'm not sure, like, give me a second. Where is it? Where's the... There was a tweet about inclusion. I don't think he put that in there. But he had some other tweets as well where he said stuff like, we need to be inclusive, which I honestly can't take seriously because it's a misuse of the word. If you're inclusive, then threatening people's exclusion is not very inclusive by definition. So I'm always fascinated by like how people use language in a way that makes no sense whatsoever. This policy is not inclusive because by definition it isn't. because you're excluding someone. It's like you're threatening exclusion at the very least. And keep in mind, like Capcom said, the regular choice, if that had been a regular CPT year, like Punk would not have been able to participate in multiple premier events. Okay, let that sink in for a minute. Okay, this is unacceptable in my opinion. I should have been an English teacher. MJ fan, the German guy who teaches people English. Is that how it's supposed to work? When I speak and when I use words, I actually like to use the words in a way that makes sense. And I think the word inclusive and inclusivity, since they're so popular, I find it always fascinating when people like to overuse these words, right? They like to say, oh, we have an inclusive community, or everyone is welcome in our community. That's what people say, right? But they don't actually mean that. They don't mean that. They don't want people who sexually harass others. Murderers. Do you want to have murderers in your community? Because that's what you're saying when you're saying, well, we're a welcoming community. No, you're welcoming to certain groups and not welcoming to others. You're not inclusive, and that's fine. People like to use these buzzwords all the time because they sound nice, but they don't literally mean them. Semantics. Yeah, but like this is important. People will use words because they sound nice, but they don't understand the meaning behind the words. I think this is an interesting topic to discuss, and I think it's an important one to solve because at the end of the day, this would not have been a topic of discussion a couple of years ago. And it always reminds me of the comments made by Mike Rossington. I'm not sure if you still remember him, but Mr. Rossington, he famously said at one point that he's not a fan of how people mold themselves into what is accepted by esports. And this is a good example of that. So Miguel Rossington definitely, he kind of understood this topic very early on and the implications. And I think there should be a push against certain things. If we start normalizing trash talking, crossing a line, and having the same kind of result as, well, like really bad stuff like physical assault or something like that, I think it becomes completely insane. If we can't have trash talk, and the trash talk actually being caused by Capcom's incompetence, let's be real about that one, then I don't think this is a good standard to have. Anyways, I think that'll be it. I've rambled on for long enough. That will be it for the YouTube portion as well. Hope you enjoyed this discussion section, YouTube, and I'll see you soon.